Longer than I'm alive, but
Say what?
longer than I've been alive.
Started in 1961 in a dealership in Springfield, Massachusetts, and didn't like the cars at all until my boss man took me for a ride in a 59B with a Saxomat. And I never knew a car could do what it did. It scared the hell out of me. And
Do we know your boss? Who was your boss?
Merwin Tober.
Oh, okay.
He was he raced quite a bit at Lime Rock and all around that area. And his last race was with a 750 GT that he rolled on the last lap, passing a Volvo. He would have won the race, except he went upside down. And so then I became the tech for the Saab cars at the dealership, which also sold the other Swede and Studebakers and a bunch of other cars too. And started owning a Saab in 1962 with a B, a sunroof car, really pretty car, and really liked it a lot. And never blew an engine in one of these things until I got on the racetrack. And it's just a lean condition, basically. But I'm going to tell you how the engines run if you're interested, what makes them tick. And start off with this. And this is 3 pistons, 3 connecting rods, and 1 crankshaft. And that's all that moves in the engine. There's no valves, no push rods or cam. Makes them run better. All the early cars were oil mix, and they started working better once they came out with the high M oil in the mid-60s, where they cut it down from a quart of oil per 8 gallons to 18 ounces. They ran even better if it had oil injection. And because you cut that oil that you're using by about 3 times, even more. You're getting about 450 miles to a quart of oil with an oil-injected engine. You're getting about 200 and something with oil mix. Yeah, so they follow close. Plus, you were lubricating the engine with the oil you're putting in gasoline. To me, gasoline is an abrasive. And when you mix an abrasive with lubricant, you're defeating the purpose. So that's why the longevity of the bearings in the oil mix engine seems to be a little bit low. When you oil injected it, it goes through 7 lines that are cast into the block. What they did was laid out these steel lines in a jig, and they cast the block around it. And then they machined the block, and hopefully all the holes lined up with the grooves in the main bearing crater. They had a high failure rate, so they had to scrap the block and start over again. And anyway, all the oil that goes into the main bearings and the connecting rod bearings has no gasoline in it. That's why the Monte Carlo or any oil-injected engine lasts a lot longer. And it's a much friendlier engine as far as the smoke is concerned. There's a lot you can do to make these cars go, and a little bit has been done to this one, I see, by raising and lowering the ports. These holes right here, the exhaust, all these holes basically go right into the cylinder. So if you raise it up or drop it, depending on which side it is, you alter it, just like putting a cam in a 4-cycle engine. You're changing the valve timing. This way you're changing the port timing. You're also taking away the lower performance of the engine. You have to move everything up. If you're adding horsepower, you got to take away torque. So it makes them lazy. That's why people rev them up a lot, because first of all, you have 7 moving parts, 3 pistons, a light flywheel. There's no torque. It's all revving. That's the way it is with 2-strokes. Plus, the useful power stroke is about 1 inch. After the fuel fires, the piston travels about 1 inch, maybe a little bit more, and then your exhaust port is open. It's not making power anymore. So And that's why they're so loud, because your combustion is still burning. It isn't completely burned. And then the next charge comes up from the lower end of the engine where it's been drawn in through the carburetors on the previous power stroke, and part of it goes out the exhaust with the burn fuel. That's why you collect oil at the tailpipe. And it starts at the coldest part of the engine, which is the tailpipe. So, and it works forward. And that's why you have to change those. And when you change a standard system to a dual system or put some kind of expansion chamber on it, your power really goes up, because now it's the way they should have built it. But it's a little bit radical, more fun though. And anyway, parts are hard to get on these things. A lot of people are manufacturing them aftermarket, and they're doing a good job. Keeps people like me in business. We're keeping them going. I just finished that crankshaft about 3 or 4 days ago, and brought it up, and I think he wants to get this thing running today or tomorrow or whatever. But I don't know. It had a main bearing seize up on it, and yeah, it stopped it real quick. But we took care of that. Got all new bearings in there. It's quite a chore to take them apart and make them right afterwards. Anybody can take it apart and they put it together right. Started doing that, self-taught, out of necessity. One day I was driving along in my Monte Carlo and heard a rattle, and what it did is it ate up a needle bearing that's in the wrist pin. So I had to change the connecting rod. How do you do that? There's no bolts. You have to press it apart. And then I said, well, if I can do that, I can do a little more too. And that's how it all started when I was that tall again. And you know, it's been a job of love. Been really enjoying it. Anyway, I can tell you, everybody knows how these run?
I know they only like 2 speeds.
Yeah.
No or go. Offer, yeah, no or go. I like
No or
that.
go. Each cylinder in the 2-stroke, on this type of 2-stroke, they're sealed from one another. So it's like 3 little engines. You unplug 2 wires and they still run. It won't be happy, it won't be powerful, but it'll run. But what it does is it got everything it needs in one cylinder. It doesn't matter what the other 2 have. So what it does is it draws air from the piston in each cylinder going upward and uncovering this port right here. And the vacuum that it's creating when it's going up draws air in, along with the fuel and oil if you got a mixer. And it lubricates, and it gets compressed and all that. And then you're going, when your piston is going up, it's compressing the previous charge that's already gone through this. And bang, it goes down. It starts compressing that charge, and at the same time, it opens this little port right here. That's where your exhaust goes out. And it also opens the transfer ports, which are about the same height, and all that compressed air at the bottom gets pushed up to the top, on top of the piston. That's the next charge. And it swirls and helps the exhaust go out, but a lot of it goes out with it, and that's why they're so dirty.
Right. Does that mean that the engine with starter has to spin pretty fast to get the first
No,
fuel?
no.
No?
Most 2-strokes, if they're tuned properly, will start just by going bip, you know, like that. You just have to put it in motion.
So it doesn't take much more?
No.
Okay.
I've had instances where when I had a 2-stroke Sonnet as an everyday car, the battery was dead every morning, and I didn't change it for a while. That's the way us technicians are.
You get it, you get it.
So what I did was put it in 3rd gear, and take the freewheeling out and just push it, and it would go, boop, 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 and then it would fire. Just reach in and put it in neutral, and it's running. And it barely turned, but it's just enough to get one cylinder to fire, and then it's good. So then it transfers the charge up to the top, pushes this one out, and then it starts coming back up, and it creates a vacuum again, blows the charge. It sucks, squeeze, bang, blow. That's all it is, you know. You got intake, compression, power, exhaust, and it fires it down over and over. It does it every time it comes up. That's an issue with two-strokes because they don't have that cooling stroke that a four-cycle engine has, where it has a free ride and it gets cooled by new air coming in and the whole bit. When this engine is running and the piston is going down, it uncovers the exhaust port, that's going to be hot because the pressure is high and it's hot. And it goes out of there, and a lot of times if the mixture isn't right or your exhaust system's plugged or something like that, timing is too far advanced, low octane, it'll take part of the piston out with it. And that's catastrophic failure. So you have to have things absolute in a two-stroke. And when they're running good, man, I'll tell you what, you can drive them forever. I used to drive my Sonic from coast to coast 6 times. You set it on 5,000 RPM and go all day. And it was a lot of fun. So, and if you race them, they're good there too. They have a class all their own, and they do pretty well. But it's a pretty good little engine, and anybody who has one and needs one overhauled, get somebody who's going to use good parts and knows what the hell they're doing. Any other questions? You again, huh?
Are there rev limits? I mean,
somebody asked me that a while ago. On the engine and from the factory is 5,500. I think about 9,000 is it. Yeah, Tom Donnie's probably running his rate at this moment at 8,800 RPM at Bonneville. Mm-hmm. And he's doing it with 750 cc's. It's pretty stout.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned something about the parts, and I try to get SKF bearings for my wheel bearings and every other bearing that I get. I know there's Chinese bearings out there, but you know, you talked about a quality bearing. What type of bearings do you use?
These say SKF USA on them.
Yeah, good. Okay.
I won't use a Japanese bearing.
Good. Good. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
And we have new, we get new pistons from Tom Donnie, and they're from Weisco, who specializes only in two-stroke motorcycle stuff. Mm-hmm. The cages that hold the rod bearings are being made by a fellow in Virginia, and they're made with aircraft quality instead of the cast the original ones were. Mm. That was a big issue. When the engine detonates, it sounds way different in a two-stroke than it does in a four-stroke. You hear ping, ping, ping in a four-stroke, you hear a rattle, somebody cutting like a cutting torch. And it sends a shock wave down here, and it shatters that cast aluminum housing. Your engine's done, especially if it tosses that rod. It'll put a hole right through the bottom of the block. So we get those new rollers. They're from a Honda automatic transmission, and we put a test on them, and they're harder than the original.
Okay.
And we get new head gaskets, gasket sets, get a lot of stuff. I know almost everything but the main parts.
So if you hear a rattle in your engine, shut it off and save the block.
Yeah, but if you're halfway throttle and you get out of it or push it down, because you're getting into another circuit when you push it down, you're riching it up. But the best thing is to get out of it. Hmm. Yes.
So the hard question, how much do I have to budget to rebuild my two-stroke engine?
If you want it back to original and it's not broken,
Right.
around $2,500 probably. thereabouts. A lot of people get more, but you know, I don't, you know, it is a fair price. Yeah. Yes?
What's the current wait time to have an engine redone at your shop?
It's big,
Thank you.
and they're all lined up.
Thank you. Just a reasonable guess. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
No, less than a year.
Less than a year.
Go for it.
Well,
Well, maybe it'll get longer because maybe more are coming in, yeah? I'm the only one down there who'll do them.
Well, that's, yes. So you have an apprentice, right?
He's not there yet. He's just getting involved, so he sits in the sonnets, man. When he started with me a few years ago, he wouldn't even sit at them. Yeah.
Let's talk about the engine bay, front to back. Talk about the distributor settings.
Yeah, that's a good point. Big issue today is gasoline for these cars. When I first started working on them, gasoline was 100 octane, and that was regular. So they said, yeah, the standard you can use regular gas. The GT you use premium. Now you don't put anything in it but premium. Sometimes avgas or racing fuel would be helpful too. A little bit of extra oil in the gasoline on an oil injector doesn't hurt. So the big issue with it is, when do you fire the spark plug? And most of the later ones have a vacuum advanced diaphragm on them. That's just an economizer. It's not going to help or hurt the car if you leave it on. I usually take them off. And we weld the weights on the distributor to keep them from advancing at all, because the total advance is around 30 degrees, 28, 30 degrees. That's too much. 18 is all right, 18 to start with, maybe 20 degrees. The engine will still perform, but it makes them live. That's what you want. Sacrifice maybe a couple horsepower for making it live for more than a day or three. Because some of them literally go out there and break the next day. And it is usually a plugged up exhaust, no air cleaner on the car, cheap gas, too hot a spark plug, and too much timing. Basically, those are going to do it. You got to do it at the right time today.
So depending on the timing, is that designate where you use hot plugs or cold plugs?
Generally, you can run one plug, because if with the little bit of oil you're using today with synthetic oils, you're not going to follow the plugs. It was a big issue back in the day because we were running 8-to-1, and that one was a quart. Or we were running 8 gallons to 1 quart of oil. Now we're running, if you got a mixer, it's 8 gallons to 16 ounces maybe. You know, so it's a lot less, and you see less smoke. And you could always tell Saab was here 5 minutes ago because there's still smoke. And that's the way it was back 50 years ago.
I don't understand the problem with the smoke. Who cares?
It
It's
doesn't,
what it does.
it's what they see. That's what it is.
I got a guy run me down. He was pissed.
Yeah.
He was
You can't take a joke, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, what the-
He goes, your car smokes, it's supposed to smoke. No, it's not.
That's not the polluter though, it's the gasoline that's with it, the unburned fuel that comes out of a two-stroke engine. And you know, if you could put a fuel injection on it with a pre-combustion chamber, you wouldn't have the problem of dirty two-stroke. It's like the orbital engine from Australia a few years ago. That was one of the cleanest engines in the world, and it was a two-stroke. So, but they never, the gas fuel companies or whatever oil companies nixed it.
Bud, I got a couple questions, but one is, I'm able to buy fuel, premium fuel with no ethanol at some stations. Does that make a difference in a two-stroke?
I would think no ethanol would be a good thing,
Good thing?
especially with the rubber parts.
Yeah.
You know, carburation and it shrinks gaskets. It does a lot. I don't know if it would hurt the engine inside or not. It would probably help performance. to a degree because it is alcohol.
It seems to help on the carburation on a V4, but
Yeah, but you're still using rubber parts.
yeah.
You know, for certain fuel injections, it's okay if you know, we don't use it that much in California, but up in your state, I think you do, yeah.
The second question is, a while back you told me that you had enough spare parts to take an LD engine and make it into a GT engine.
That
Are
was
you
then.
That was then? Now is,
Probably still do it, yeah.
you can still do it?
Yeah, it's not that big a deal. All you gotta do is change timing and the crankshaft.
Paint them red.
Yeah, but you know something? There's a little number on the side of it that tells otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful there.
So you grind the number off.
No.
JB weld some new numbers on it.
No, I can do that.
But I have a comment about the ethanol fuel. In Europe, we have in Sweden, if you buy 95 octane, that is the standard type, you have 5% of ethanol. In Europe, they're going up to 10%. And you can see on some classic car that this is creating a problem with proper parts in the fuel systems. But also, if you take E85, for example, and mix it with normal two-stroke oil, you can see it doesn't mix, you have a dispersion. And then you mix it like this, it's looking good, then you leave it for 2 hours, and you see all the additives lying in the bottom of the gas container. So most of the two-stroke oils available on the European market doesn't work with ethanol. And that can cause problems on the two-stroke.
It may very well work with oil injection though.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Oh,
it
that's
doesn't
not
have
right.
time to get.
But we have a different situation. The majority, more or less, of the engines you say are oil injected. But in Sweden, in Europe, they were most premix.
Yeah, that's where it would be an issue.
Mhm. Okay.
Bud, what are you using for spark plugs these days?
NGK A8 or something like that. Either A8 or A7, whichever one is cooler.
A8 is cooler.
Okay. Yes.
Other question, do you have a 1964 useless, plain Jane, no injection, nothing like that? What gasoline should I use? Should I go premium?
What?
Should I go premium or?
Oh, yes, nothing but. Nothing but. Because the gasoline, like he said, is 95 where he is. That's what the regular over here, when that car was built, was about 95, maybe even higher. Now you can't, where in California, 91 is the height. So that's why we have to limit the timing when I was talking about the distributor.
In Canada, you can get 94, and if you are lucky, then there's no ethanol in it. Okay, so that's an advantage.
You still use premium. Gotta use
Precisely, yes. But it is that if you go with the regular, there is 10% in plus is 5%, and in the premium, there is no ethanol in it.
Okay.
So obviously,
Don't do it ethanol if you can help it.
smoke is okay. Mosquitoes
Smoke is okay, yeah, but if you.
It's a mosquito patrol.
Use a synthetic oil,
No.
use synthetic oil. You can cut it down. People will be happier with it.
Okay, so sorry. Okay, okay, the mixing would be what?
You read the directions on the can.
On the can.
Hey, but I wanted to clarify your comment about timing, setting the time. The original setting was 10 degrees, and then you leave it with the mechanical advance. So you're advocating setting it at 18 to 20 and welding everything, so you're gonna run all the time.
Yes.
Just wanted to.
Well, the thing is that some of the cars had 6 degrees, some of them had 10. It depends on the curve in the distributor, which distributor you have. We're equalizing it by welding the weights. They're all the same.
And idle's okay at 18,
Yes.
20?
And it starts fine.
Starts fine, 18, 20.
Probably idle a little better. Yeah.
Okay.
No pain.
Yeah, it all works.
Huh.
You know, I wasn't the first one to do it, but I've done it on a lot of cars. I just did it on, yeah, here's his distributor. I left the vacuum advance on it and just welded.
Well, it's all, okay.
Yeah, that's out of this engine.
I'll try that tonight.
So it'll use the vacuum advance, but not the
You
mechanical?
can use it if you want. Like I say, it's never gonna work. The only time it's gonna work is when you're letting off the throttle a little bit and you've got high vacuum. When the engine's idling, you don't have any vacuum left over to make it work,
Yeah.
because it's not ported, first of all. Second of all, anytime you're moving the car, you're using a bit of vacuum to make the car move. So it's a non-issue. Yeah. Yes.
Hey, Bud, the guy was talking about the oil
Yep.
mix. Remember, back in the 70s, Saab had that concentrate oil.
Yeah, the high end.
Yeah, and it was an 18-ounce jug, and it said on there 18 ounces to 8 gallons of gas if you use that. And that was in the 60s.
Yep.
With their formula of synthetic oil. So now, with what we have now, it's 18 ounces to 8 gallons or even less. I go 16 with Redline Racing.
Yeah, it's well, first of all, the high M oil was a concentrate.
Yeah.
It was fossil oil and synthetic blend.
Yeah, but the dilution rate was
Right,
half.
right, almost in half.
Right.
And nowadays it's way less oil
Yeah.
with the full synthetic.
Yeah.
And Redline is what I use.
Yeah.
Two-stroke racing oil.
And what do you mix of that?
This is what I use too.
16 ounces.
That's what I use
About
too.
8 gallons per half a quart.
16 ounces, yeah.
16 ounces.
Well,
That's even less.
I've been using Redline, and I've been using it at 1 pint, or 16 ounces per 5 gallons.
That's too rich.
Too
Yeah,
rich.
yeah.
Okay, so it's okay to fill a whole tank up and just pour the
No,
pint in?
8 gallons.
Well, it's an 8-gallon tank.
No, it's even more than that.
Yeah, it is. 10 and a half.
Use 8 gallons as a measurement.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that's the most I've ever gotten in it. was 8
You're
gallons.
not taking it all out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the red light.
Eight gallons, that's why they
Got 5
say,
gallons left in the light comes on.
from what I understand, even in Sweden, back in the day, they had gas stations where you pulled up to a pump and it was already mixed.
Oh,
No, he's saying yes. Yeah.
Steal some of the countryside.
Oh, let's steal some.
Back to spark plugs on the AGKs, I'm having a real hard time finding A7 and A8 plugs. The only thing they stock now is AB7 and AB8. The only difference I can see, thread's the same, electrode's the same, but the hex nut on
Yeah,
the plug is
That's not gonna make it run any different.
No.
And so it's a good plug to use?
Yeah, if it's the same plug.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Great.
worry about it, yes.
I'm gonna show my ignorance, because I've only had a stroker for a limited amount of time, so I've been.
We've all had it for a
when the-
limited amount of time.
When the gas gauge gets right down to absolutely empty, I've been putting in a full quart of 2-cycle marine outboard oil. And what harm am I causing by doing so?
Is it fossil oil?
It's just 2-cycle, 2-stroke marine outboard.
Fossil oil? Or
Yeah,
synthetic?
fossil oil, yeah.
You're better off with synthetic.
Is it causing, am I running too
Yeah,
white
what
to
you're
rich
gonna,
then?
what you're going to do is leave carbon deposits in the engine. It's going to be just like not changing your oil in a standard 4-stroke engine. You build up sludge, and that's what you're doing. You're going to build up a layer of that that'll even on the rotating parts, it builds up on
I
the.
need to cut that way down.
Yeah, so because you, it's just I just go like that and we're done.
2-cycle oil.
Just insurance. How much insurance you want?
You talked about performance, if you, just for instance, you have a 750 block that you want to take and ruin. You talk about performance and raising and lowering the ports about, on the exhaust port, or intake port, how do you get the performance and the horsepower and get rid of the torque, to get more top end on your engine? Lowering the ports, I'm not familiar with the performance side
There
of
are
it.
specifications, and I can't rattle them off to you now, but you raise the exhaust port.
Yeah,
I feel this one may have been done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it at a little angle. But you raise it so the exhaust port opens sooner and
Okay.
closes later. On the intake, you do the opposite because your piston skirt.
You want the gas to come in quicker.
This is the part that controls the intake.
Correct.
Some people have taken them and cut out a little window here.
Uh-huh.
I've done it a couple times, but every time I take the engine apart afterwards, it's got a cracked piston.
Oh, you
Because it's-
the ribbing
it's
on
a-
the inside.
It's a bad point to do it.
Uh-huh.
So you gotta do it with the block.
So the intake goes down and the exhaust goes up. I mean,
Yeah, because
you're talking about
controlling it
thousands
with
or?
the top, you're doing it with this.
Correct.
If you raise it, it's gonna happen sooner, it's gonna close later.
So you want the gas out of there and you want more fuel.
Yeah, but
in it.
you're not gonna do it, because you
No.
don't have the specs.
No, I don't.
Well, you did say ruin a block too.
Yeah, if you want to ruin the block, yeah.
I've done it, I know. I
Okay.
had one that I drove 2,000 miles and it started 3 times
Yeah.
and it started.
So exhaust goes up and intake goes down, and that's kind of what you play with to get the
That's
performance.
not all.
Well, yeah, pistons and
Yeah.
shaving the head. And,
You know enough,
Yeah.
just to ruin it.
I just, yeah, I'll ruin it.
What do you do for a living?
I try to fix cars.
Rocket science?
No.
Quit being a scientist if you quit working in your car.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I had a Sonnet that Carl Lepar owned. I don't know if you know Carl Lepar or not, but he raced 2-strokes. And it was a '67 Sonnet, and I got that engine fired up. That thing wouldn't idle under 3,500 RPM, but it got to 12 grand, 11 grand really easy.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did to it. I heard that he put some, casted, epoxy in the crankcase and
Yeah, he stuffed it.
stuffed it, and that's way over my head.
That's not new.
Yeah.
People have been doing it for years.
Chris Kester was doing that back in the 50s.
Yeah. We knew a guy who, he was the first employee of Saab.
Hmm.
He used to take cars off boats and all that, but he would, screw stuff into the, wood from the outside, and keen the screw so it looked like cast iron,
Uh-huh.
and stuff the bottom end so they had more compression at the bottom,
Really?
Active cheating.
He'd take his car to his boat, take the engine out and put it in the boat and go out and
Run
do
it
some
back,
races.
run it the other direction.
That's easy.
With the boat.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a car that runs backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Quantum 3 has a backwards engine.
But the oil mix, at what point in varying oil mix and using too much oil is it leaning the mixture to the point it's going to
It's
make a
going to
difference?
lean it no matter how much you use, because all the liquid is taken up a finite space.
Right, so
If
that's
some of it burns and others doesn't, you're running leaner.
right. So you run too much, you run more than you
Yeah.
should, you're leaning
That's
it
why.
out.
That's why you're going to get more performance out of a synthetic oil, because you're using so much less of it.
And you got more
You get
fuel
more
per
gasoline
stroke,
to
right?
make power. Yes.
So you brought up an interesting question. What's the difference with an engine running backwards versus forwards?
You have to switch 2 wires around.
But it doesn't make any difference to the engine.
No, it does on a oil injected, because in the intake ports, there's a separator right here in each port. That's to keep the piston ring in the piston. And right in the middle of that, on the inside, is one of the lines for oil. And on a forward running engine, that's on the thrust side. On a backwards engine, the thrust side's over here. So that's the only detriment to that. But it hasn't affected it, because I've run it a lot with the oil injection. And I used to have a little H-modified race car that ran 7,000 RPM easily, and never had a problem with it either.
Does the oil pump? Because you have
No,
a
we
pressure.
get different gears,
Oh, okay.
reverse gears. So the oil pump and the distributor turn the same direction. You had to do that in the day because they weren't welding the weights in the distributor.
Uh-huh.
And if your weights came out, it would retard it instead of advancing.
So they just have a different set of gears you put on the drive,
They
the
have
distributor,
specially made-
the oil pump, and the crank. Okay.
Oil pump and
Okay.
distributor. Yeah, and the crank, right.
On a good running green block, 67, assuming that it's, tuned reasonably well, how many miles is that engine good for before you have to overhaul it?
Well,
I mean, typically
in
from your
'67, it was guaranteed for the life of the car as long as the original owner had the car.
Yeah, well, I'm not the original owner.
So 10 feet,
What's
100
that?
miles, 10,000 miles, I don't know. It depends on what happens with it, what you're starting out with.
Don't let your friends drive the car when it's a low tank of gas, and they fill it up for you.
Yeah.
No.
And don't use it, don't drive it without freewheel. Because if you coast down a hill, you're gonna lose it right now.
But people have gotten well over 100,000 miles out of an engine.
Well, I never have. I got about real close to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've gotten 80 or 90,000, but I don't baby.
yeah.
I like to hear them.
I was going to make a comment.
Yeah. It's a neat little engine. Yes?
Since you have so much excess energy, wouldn't you try and turbocharge a two-stroke you have excess exhaust energy?
There's a man here who did turbocharge.
Oh, yeah, he was in Albany. His name was Gordo.
No, I'm thinking of John Moss.
Well, John did one, and then there's a guy blank out.
Yeah, but that's a lot of work because you have to oil the turbocharger
Yeah.
separately, and, you know, it's a lot of work.
Did John do a car?
No, he did it in stationary engine.
Oh, okay, yeah, with the
With
trionics, yeah, fuel injection, air mass meter.
Stroketronics is what he
Yeah,
calls it.
yeah, okay. Well, that didn't run very good.
Because I was wondering if.
It was a
that
good
would-
thought, though.
If that would
Yes.
destroy your.
Bud, talk about pistons for a minute, and specifically, I'm interested in your thoughts on clearance. I'm looking at those don't look like they're new.
They're not new. They were in the engine when I
Right,
blew.
so did you home the block?
I didn't do any work on the block.
Okay, so all you
It
did on
was
that
done
was
by
just-
somebody else.
Okay.
All I did was clean the pistons and redid the crank and blocked his distributor and gave him his old parts back.
So what do you like for clearance? I mean, there's a couple.
I like about double what Saab says.
So you like about, what, 8,
4 or
10?
5.
Oh, you like 4 or 5?
I like to hear it. I don't care if it has a little bit of blow by.
No.
I hate scuff marks.
I'm with you.
Yeah, never lock one up. And you know, when you're cranking 7,000 RPM down the straightaway, it seems to go on forever. And then you get down to the corner, and you have to downshift to get around the corner and rev it up again for miles and miles. You don't want it to seize up, but they will at stock clearance, I think. So I've been giving them almost double.
Okay.
And you hear them, we hear a deal. Yes?
And how about the old oil monitor? Do you have any replacement for that, or?
The oil what?
The oil monitor, the light on your dash. and
Pressure
tells you
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're on
The
oil.
relay.
I do. Yeah.
I want to hear
Well,
about
how
that.
do you get one to work? I mean,
Forget it.
Yeah.
Just leave it there and let it do what it wants. What you do is get one of those purple lights that is in your high beam. You know, your indicator
okay.
light. So it doesn't bother you. At night it will bother you. And I usually put it down low, so I have to go like this. And what you do is take the wire there's a yellow wire runs from your oil pump up to that monitor.
right.
Take a jumper and go over to one side of that bulb. Take the other side of that bulb and go to ignition on.
Okay.
And every time that little switch on the front of the engine grounds itself, it's going to put that light on. You'll be going down the road about 60, 65, and that light will be going
Huh.
once every second or two. And you know that thing is pumping oil.
I noticed in the manual it says something about being careful not to run too much current through the oil pump contact.
It's a resistor.
It's what?
It's a resistor. You
Yeah,
don't
but
run
I'm saying-
anything through the contact because it's a ground circuit.
Right. So you don't have to worry about that ball drawing too much current then?
No.
So even at 6,000 RPM, you're still, it grounds and
It goes
opens?
with the speed of the engine.
Okay.
It grounds and then ungrounds. If you're idling, it will stay on for 20 seconds maybe.
Okay.
Because the oil pump squirts oil in the holes once every 200 revs of the engine.
Oh, okay.
It's geared 200 to 1 through a planetary gear system.
Oh, really? Okay. That was
It's really
continuous.
slow. I mean, can you see that thing squirting at 6,000 RPM? I can't.
No, okay. So every 200 RPM, it
Every
opens
200
and
revs
closes?
of the engine, not RPM. Revs of the engine. So if you're doing 2,000 or 6,000 RPM,
Yeah,
that thing will go like that.
really?
Yeah. Because that's how fast that's going around and squirting oil into the engine.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
The shaft on the oil pump is going the full 6,000 RPMs.
Correct.
It's 1-to-1. But it has an oscillating gear that goes inside of a planetary set, and that's how.
So it
and the
times
gear-
it times
gear
it.
spins like at random.
Okay. And then when it gets to the opening, then it squirts and it keeps
Well, it
going
has
around
a
again.
map. They have a map in it. It's a round disc,
Okay,
and it has,
I noticed that.
like yeah, okay,
Oh, okay, I can.
highs and lows. And then a little piston goes up and down as it goes around. It just directs it into the
Wow,
hole
okay.
it needs to go to.
I never knew that. Thanks.
I'm curious about, you mentioned the epoxy filled crankcase. I've got a 940 that was the ex Scotty Knox racer, and it was built by Bobby Billen.
Bobby Bill.
Back in the 70s or 80s. And the car seems to be running good, but should I worry about the epoxy coming apart and
Yeah.
gumming up the engine, or
No, I wouldn't worry about gumming up. I'd be worried about it floating around.
floating?
Well, a big piece chunk off, come out and damage it.
So,
I would worry about it. Check it. You know, if it's there, it's there. It's good.
Yeah.
But if it comes loose, it's going to cause an issue
yeah.
because it's going to go up.
If
By
it's
a
made
piece.
of balsa wood, it will come out
Yeah.
with a lot of smoke. That
Yeah.
the car behind you doesn't appreciate.
It'll get caught between the piston and the head. You know, the squish area is pretty small. It's going to get caught up in here.
And it's not very compressible.
23 thousandths of an inch right there.
Yeah.
28 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It could do damage, yes.
Not that we're gonna get into rebuilding crankshafts, but can we all fly out to your shop and watch you rebuild one?
There's a video on.
How they press them apart. I've never seen them pressed apart before.
Sure.
I know it's a trade secret, you know, I know it's a
No,
trade.
it's not a trade secret. It's just doing it.
Okay.
I don't know how many people want to do it.
How many jigs are
Yeah,
available
what is
in
it?
the
Just
country?
describe what it
Well, I
takes to
just-
press it
you know
apart.
what? I don't do it like Tom Donnie does.
Oh.
And I don't know how he does it, but he does it well.
Can you give us a brief overview how you start taking it apart?
Yeah, first I get everything off of it, and
And you've got the rods on it, and
yeah, well, the pistons are off.
yeah, I've got the rods
And I
on
press this pin right out of here.
it. You press it towards your
The
left
only
finger.
way to go.
Oh, this
I
way.
support it right here
Okay.
and press down, and the crank comes down in my hand. That's it.
Okay.
Then you press this piece out of here.
Uh-huh.
Leave this shaft, the pin there. Press the center one out of this one.
Uh-huh.
Everything's coming down, working this way. This is number one. They numbered them from the rear to the front.
Okay.
That's another quirk of Saab's.
Mhm.
And you can look here and see it on the block.
Right.
1, 2, 3. This is the front of the engine.
Uh-huh.
Fine orders 1, 2, 3. So just go down, like that.
Okay.
The trick is putting it back together. That's what I won't show you.
And then how you align it over that.
Come on, bud.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm not going to get into it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you. Sometime I'll call you and tell you I'm going to retire tomorrow. Come on down to that.
But finding an old car, it's got an engine that runs, and you check all the numbers and stuff, and you discover there's a mix and match between non-GT blocks and GT blocks, GT cranks, non-GT cranks, and the GT head and a non-GT head. What happens when you mix in like GT crank
I understand.
and block, but a regular head?
Okay. One of the best engines today is a standard block, a GT or Monte Carlo crankshaft, and a standard head. So you got the higher compression here. You shoot the fuel up much quicker and more of it, but you're not compressing it more because of the detonation you get today. So you can control it better. They make really nice torquey engines. More torquey than the GT that's in the car or the Sonic. A little bit less horsepower, but you can really feel the difference.
But it's not a GT ported block, it's standard porting.
Right. You can massage it a little bit. You don't have to go stage 2 or 3. You can go stage 1, just clean it up.
Now, I have an engine that you built probably 20 plus years ago. It's never been used, and it's still got the masking tape over the ports. It's been sitting for all this time.
Yeah.
and I think it's a GT block and a GT crank, but a standard head.
That, it should run okay, but it would run better if it had a standard block.
And I don't know if I've checked.
Yeah. If it's an LD, then it should
Yeah, it's
run
not,
really
I
well.
don't think it's an LD.
Is it oil mix or oil injection?
It's an injection engine.
Yeah, it could be an LD. Well, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes?
On the front muffler that's right under the engine on a side, or I guess even on like an
All the
two-stroke, on a two-stroke, do you have to worry about that plugging or anything going wrong with it?
Yeah, they'll plug up with white stuff. They'll get real, so that the gases can't go bad. It doesn't work well. The best thing you can do is an expansion chamber. It may not be absolute because you need 3 of them to be perfect, but I have them made where they're really nice. I have a standard 66 at work, and the original exhaust was on it when I drove it over to the muffler shop, and they built a chamber for me, and it burns rubber in 2 gears now, and we didn't do another thing to it. It just unleashed horsepower.
Does it look pretty normal?
It looks normal, yeah, it goes down, it gets wider, and then it gets,
Yeah.
you know, and got 2 pipes. We modified the rear muffler for 2 pipes. It's quiet.
How
Has a
big
snap-
is it? Are the 2 pipes bigger than stock or standard?
They're 1.5 instead of 1
2
1/3.
1.5s? Okay.
2 1.5 instead of 1 1/3.
And this is something a muffler shop does? I mean, how do you?
Yeah, my shop does, yeah. It's, I've been dealing with them for 30 years, so they know me. They hide, but they do the job anyway. I guess we're done, huh? Anybody want to look at the engine?